Will outspoken U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump dominate the final Republican debate of the year? We'll tell you what's at stake. A new report signals progress in the path to malaria elimination. And the new trailer for the Independence Day sequel has fans asking, where's Will? Africa 54 starts right now.
This is Africa 54. We'll have those stories in a moment. But first, the UN Human Rights Chief says Burundi is moving closer to civil war after insurgents attacked military camps in the capital last week. Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein says with this latest series of violence, the country seems to have taken a new step towards outright civil war, and simmering tensions are now about to erupt. Fighting in Bujumbura last week left almost 90 people dead in the worst clashes since the military coup was foiled in May. Following attacks on its military bases, government authorities responded with house-to-house searches, arrests, and alleged summary executions. There has been months of sporadic violence and assassinations, mostly in the capital, between supporters and opponents of President Pierre Nkurunziza. Not too far from there, chaos continued to reign in the Central African Republic, where a Muslim rebel leader has declared an autonomous state in his northeastern stronghold after rejecting elections scheduled for this month. Now, from his headquarters in the town of Ukaga Bandoro, Nuruddin Adam, head of Seleka's FRPC faction, controls a swathe of territory in the northeast. His spokesman and chief, Lieutenant Molad Musa, says the so-called Republic of Logoni had been proclaimed there on Monday. Adam was second in command when the Seleka rebels seized Bangui in 2013. The impoverished nation has descended into chaos since the mainly Muslim Seleka rebels ousted President Francois Bozize in early 2013, provoking reprisal attacks by Christian anti-Balaka militias. A ceasefire is in effect in Yemen on Tuesday as United Nations-sponsored peace talks began in Switzerland in a new push to end months of fighting that have killed nearly 6,000 people. UN Secretary-General Special Envoy Ismail al-Sheikh Ahmed announced today the start of a cessation of hostilities in Yemen, which he considers an initial first step towards building a lasting peace in the country. At this hour, army commanders say the truce appears to be largely holding, although Saudi state TV reported some 20 violations by the Iran-backed Houthis in the first hour of the ceasefire. Well, for the latest on the situation in Yemen, journalist Zaid Al-Alaya joins me live from Sana'a. Zaid, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, first, just tell us how things look like now at this moment, because we reported that there were some violations there.
There were the ceasefire, like this is for the third time, didn't even last hours. Like directly after the announcement of the ceasefire at 12 noon today, there were a number of strikes carried in Marib, Saada, Hajjah, Damar, and also internal clashes in Taiz, Marib, Shreja, Laht. So there is no ceasefire or anything. It was broken and like 2 hours after the announcement.
Now, we know that in many cases, even after a ceasefire has been announced, there could be sporadic fighting here and there. Do you get the sense that perhaps this is something that will perhaps cool down in a few hours and the country perhaps gets onto a real ceasefire?
No. What makes Yemen very complicated is the warring sides are not one against one or two against two. There are a number of actors in the whole battles or war or conflict, or call it whatever you want. There is military units loyal to Saleh, military units loyal to Hadi, popular committees loyal to Houthis, popular committees loyal to Hadi, tribesmen, militants, AKAB, ISIS. There are a number of actors. That's why I don't believe a ceasefire will last for more than a few hours.
Now, Zaid, this conflict has been going on for a long time. Up to today, who really is in control of Yemen and who is in control of Sana'a?
Sana'a is still under the control of the Houthis and their allies. Houthis are controlling Sana'a more than anybody. Sana'a, not just Sana'a and the outskirts and the other areas around it, like Amran, Hajjah, Saada, all these areas. Most of the north, except for Taiz and Marib, most of the northern provinces, except for Marib and Taiz, are in the hands of the Houthis.
How has life been so far in Yemen as a whole?
I would say that the whole Yemen now is divided between Houthis, Saleh, and their allies, the so-called resistance, and also extremist groups, AKAP and ISIS. These are the three main important groups that are controlling the whole country.
How is life like for the citizens of Yemen?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult in terms of no fuel for the. I think now we are in month number 4. There is no electricity, not even one single minute. Large number of people were laid off from their jobs. People cannot even afford to buy things for their family because they lost their job. Those who are depending on daily allowances from working on constructions, working in like day by day jobs, they have lost all these things, and the life is becoming very difficult for ordinary people.
Other than the fact that there are chaos in the country, in terms of casualties, have they gone down? The people are dying from this conflict?
Of course, now with the almost complete collapse of the health services, not just in Sana'a, in many provinces, the blockade that is put on Yemen, there has been a lot of medicines and medications for dialysis, for diabetes, for kidney failures. There are no medicines, and people are dying in hospitals from very simple disease that can be simply cured.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Zaid. Zaid Al-Alai is a Yemen-based journalist speaking with us from Sana'a. Well, African leaders are urging the World Trade Organization to do more to support large-scale agriculture in Africa and develop a new global approach to domestic farm subsidies. Now, the leaders spoke ahead of Tuesday's WTO talks in Nairobi. The first ministerial meeting of the trade body in sub-Saharan Africa. Top African officials say they hope to find ways to level the playing field as they seek a bigger role in global trade and an increase of profits from the raw materials they produce. The Geneva-based WTO has been trying and largely failing to agree on a global package of trade reforms since a meeting in Doha in 2001 hatched an ambitious plan for knocking down trade barriers. Its 162 members are meeting Tuesday through Friday. We're now moving on. As we look forward to talking to somebody right there in Nairobi, turning to U.S. politics, Las Vegas, Nevada is the site for Tuesday's night's big Republican presidential debate. Real estate magnate Donald Trump continues to lead in the national polls, but Texas Senator Ted Cruz has surged to the top in a key Iowa poll. Former Sergeant Ben Carson, who used to be closest to Trump, is now plummeting in the polls. Viewers Larissa Hoke has more.
The latest poll results show the terrorist attacks on November 13th in Paris and December 2nd in San Bernardino, California, have had an impact on voters. Despite the outrage Trump provoked by calling for a ban on Muslims entering the United States, his support remains strong.
We're living in fear. I'm not creating the fear. People are living in fear.
And Cruz, one of the few Republican candidates who has refused to condemn Trump, is gaining ground in opinion polls. According to a Des Moines Register Bloomberg Politics poll released Saturday, Cruz jumped to 31%, 10 points over Trump. The billionaire from New York dismisses the polls.
The Des Moines Register is the worst. They are the worst.
Judging by the most recent media exchange, the once friendly competition between Trump and Cruz is likely to turn into a fierce battle during the 7 weeks leading to the Iowa caucuses, the first step in the U.S. presidential election process.
It's also a question of judgment.
I would say I have far better judgment than Ted. I think I have a really great temperament.
As Cruz surges in the polls, Carson has plummeted. He is now third after plunging 15 points from his top position in October.
Poll numbers go up and down. I wasn't excited when they're up. I'm not excited when they're down. This is a very fluid contest.
In another change from the previous debate, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie returns to the primetime debate after failing to qualify for it in November.
One of the most exciting things about being president would be the ability you have to be able to change minds and change hearts through showing your own.
5 other Republicans have qualified for the CNN-sponsored primetime debate, and 4 others will square off in an earlier second-tier forum. Zlatica Houk, VOA News, Washington.
Well, now we're going back to Nairobi, Kenya, where we are we're being joined by Tabitha Kiriti-Ng'ang'a, Professor of Economics at the University of Nairobi. We were talking earlier about the WTO talks in Nairobi. Welcome, Professor, to Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
Now, you know, the talks are ongoing, and I know you're paying attention. Just give us a sense of, first, what are the critical issues that are being handled at those talks in Nairobi?
Okay, some of the issues that are being discussed are issues to do with fair trade, that is leveling the trade gap in terms of trade. Other issues are to do with agricultural subsidies that are offered by the European Union and American, that is the developed countries, such that the less developed countries cannot compete very well. Mm-hmm. Other issues are to do with trade facilitation agreement.
Yeah. Now,
that is, the developed countries are supposed to facilitate the less developed countries in terms of leveling the trade gap so that the the less developed countries' goods can actually compete in the world market.
Yeah, let's zero in on that, Professor.
To do with inclusive growth and sustainable development, so that trade can actually lead to the development of those less developed countries and lead to increased welfare and reduction in poverty.
Yeah. Now, Professor, let's just stay with agriculture subsidies. This has been an ongoing debate, like for decades. What is it that the developing countries, African countries, want the bigger countries to do about this?
Pardon, I didn't hear that.
What is it that African countries specifically want in terms of fairness in agricultural subsidies?
Yes, so what they want done is to make it easier for them to compete in the world market, because in the World Trade Organization and the members, the more a commodity is manufactured, when you increase the value chain, the more tariffs are imposed, so that the most developed countries would want African goods to actually be a source of raw materials. So it therefore means that African countries and most other less developed countries, their goods actually remain lowly competitive, and it's as if they are penalized when they increase manufactured goods. So they want those things removed, and to make sure that the European countries, American, and any other developed country is actually made so that they do not put unfair trade practices, imposing non-tariff barriers on their commodities, and especially when it comes to sanitary issues.
Okay, Professor Kiriti, we'll probably talk to you again before the end of this talks. Thanks a lot for your perspective. Tabitha Kiriti-Ng'ang'a.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Tabitha Kiriti-Ng'ang'a is a professor of economics at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, good news in the fight against malaria. Stay with us.
This is Greenbeat for a healthier planet.
Most electric cars need a charge after just 300 or 400 kilometers, but not the new fuel cell vehicles like Hyundai's iX35, which powers its electric motor with hydrogen. Hyundai recently showed off its newest model on nearly every street in London. Laura King is Senior Manager of Public Relations.
So we've driven, photographed and filmed every single street in central London, as defined by the world-famous Cabby Knowledge. And that's actually over 2,000 miles.
The iX35 can reach a maximum speed of 160 kilometers per hour. Here's Robin Hales of Hyundai.
The only difference between this and an electric car is that this produces its own electricity on board, so it doesn't need to be plugged in.
Hyundai's iX35 fuel cell holds the record for the longest trip on a single tank of hydrogen. Hydrogen fuel stations, though, are far and few between. Only about a dozen stations in the United States have hydrogen, nearly all of them in California. I'm Rebecca Ward for VOA's Green Beat.
Whereas U.S. President Barack Obama firmly says the U.S.-led coalition is moving ahead with a great sense of urgency to target the terrorist Islamic State group in Syria and Iraq. Mr. Obama spoke on Monday after meeting with his national security team as he sought to reassure Americans about efforts to counter the militant group. VOA White House correspondent Mary Alice Salinas has more.
Islamic State is losing in Syria and Iraq. That is a message from President Barack Obama, who says the U.S.-led coalition is targeting the militant group at its heart. There is more air power, firepower, and special operations forces to help push back the extremists, who the president says use men, women, and children as shields.
So even as we're relentless, we have to be smart, targeting ISIL surgically with precision. At the same time, our partners on the ground are rooting ISIL out town by town, neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block. That is what this campaign is doing.
After meeting with his national security team at the Pentagon, Obama sought to reassure a nervous American public. Since the San Bernardino massacre, carried out by a couple believed to have been inspired by Islamic State militants, and the Paris bloodshed at the hands of extremists, skeptics have raised questions about the effectiveness of the strategy to beat back Islamic State. The president said the coalition fight against IS is moving ahead with a great sense of urgency. But he announced no new strategy.
I think they're trying to look more like they're doing something. And I'm not actually sure that's a bad strategy. I think if they feel the American people need reassured, if they're frightened after the terrorist attacks in Paris and in California a couple of weeks ago, I think actually the sort of relatively consistent reassurance might be a way to make people feel more comfortable.
Obama said Islamic State militants are being driven out from key locations, and the coalition has its leaders on the run.
ISIL leaders cannot hide, and our next message to them is simple: you are next.
Obama said the coalition will keep hunting down terrorists, training and equipping moderate forces who are fighting them, and disrupting the group's recruiting, financing, and propaganda. Mary Alice Salinas, VOA News, the White House.
Where Saudi Arabia is heading up a new 34-nation Islamic military alliance to fight terrorism. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia's defense minister, says the group is prepared to make a coordinated effort to fight terrorism.
Today there are a number of countries that suffer from terrorism, for example Daesh in Syria and Iraq, terrorism in Sinai, terrorism in Yemen, terrorism in Libya, terrorism in Mali, terrorism in Nigeria, terrorism in Pakistan, terrorism in Afghanistan, and this requires a very strong effort to fight. Without a doubt, there will be coordination in these efforts.
Well, Defense Minister Mohammed bin Salman told reporters their initiative will include an operations center in Riyadh to coordinate military operations. The alliance includes Jordan, Bahrain, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, which are conducting airstrikes in Syria as part of a U.S.-led coalition against Islamic State. Others from the Middle East include Tunisia, Lebanon, Libya, and Egypt. A number of African countries such as Sudan, Somalia, Mali, and Nigeria are also part of the effort. The Saudi statement said other nations have expressed their support, including Indonesia, the home of the world's largest Muslim population. Well, it's time for our health report. And joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest news on human rabies.
A new framework to eliminate human rabies and save tens of thousands of lives each year has been launched by the World Health Organization, the World Organization for Animal Health, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and the Global Alliance for the Control of Rabies. The new structure calls for 3 key actions: making human vaccines and antibodies affordable, ensuring people who get bitten receive prompt treatment, and mass dog vaccinations to tackle the disease at its source. Tens of thousands of people die from rabies each year, and worldwide, 4 out of every 10 people bitten by suspected rabid dogs are children under age 15. In Asia and Africa, human vaccination is not always affordable. The new framework emphasizes prevention through vaccinating dogs, whose bites cause 99% of all human rabies cases.
Rabies kills tens of thousands of people every year, mainly in remote, rural areas of Asia and Africa. Death from rabies is horrific and agonizingly painful. Every single one of these deaths could have been prevented. Well over 95% of human rabies cases result from the bite of a rabid dog. Vaccinating at least 70% of the dog population breaks the cycle of transmission in dogs. Rabies elimination is feasible, it's possible, and it is affordable.
And while vaccinating dogs will be key in the new approach, observers say the elimination of rabies will not be possible without more widely available human vaccines. We turn now to malaria. New estimates from the World Health Organization show a significant increase in the number of countries moving towards malaria elimination. The World Malaria Report 2015 indicates that more than half of the 106 countries with malaria in 2000 have achieved significant reductions in new malaria cases by 2015. Dr. Pedro Alonso is Director of Global Malaria Program at the World Health Organization.
Every year, World Health Organization publishes its World Malaria Report, defining what the problem of malaria is today. This year, probably the most important figure is the recognition that at least 57 countries have reduced their malaria cases by at least 75% and are moving fast towards our new goal of malaria elimination.
New estimates presented in the WHO report show that reductions in malaria cases are attributable to malaria control activities that saved an estimated $900 million in case management costs in the region between 2001 and 2014. Insecticide-treated mosquito nets contributed the largest savings, followed by artemisinin-based combination therapies and indoor residual spraying. The report says these achievements were made possible through strong country-level leadership, technical support from the WHO, and financial assistance from the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria.
The second important element of this report is that it allows us to look back over the last 15 years, recognize and quantify the unprecedented progress that has been achieved in the fight against malaria, with a reduction of 60% in our death rate and at least a 37% reduction in our cases.
While the African region continues to carry the highest malaria burden, there have been significant advances, such as the drop of malaria mortality rates by 66% among all age groups and by 71% among children under 5, a population particularly susceptible to the disease. However,
in the face of this unprecedented progress, key challenges remain.
In addition, millions of people are still not receiving the services they need to prevent and treat malaria. In 2014, approximately one-third of people at risk of malaria in sub-Saharan Africa lived in households that lacked protection from mosquito nets or indoor residual spraying. The World Health Organization has recently approved a new strategy for the next 15 years, the Global Technical Strategy that calls for at least 90% reduction in disease and death by 2030. That's our Africa Health Report for today. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Lino. Now, be sure to watch Lino Mudu's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Why Will Smith isn't in Independence Day resurgence? The answer after the break. We'll be right back.
Shiite leader al-Zakzaki is safe and in protective custody.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. And should we win the day?
Well, the action-packed new trailer for Independence Day Resurgence dropped on Sunday. Well, the sequel to the 1996 science fiction blockbuster was missing one familiar face, Will Smith. The star, whose marine pilot hero character helped save the world from invading aliens, decided not to sign on for the movie, which hits theaters June 24th. In the new movie's story, his character was killed in 2007 while test piloting the first alien hybrid fighter due to an unknown malfunction. The trailer has been viewed over 6 million times on YouTube. Next up, as the countdown to the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens nears, one change that has people talking is the increase of female characters. Director J.J. Abrams says that in addition to Star Wars veteran Carrie Fisher, the film features Lupita Nyong'o as well as female stormtroopers and female resistance pilots. Abrams says that he and executive producer Kathy Kennedy agreed when they began speaking about making the film that more female characters were amassed. Star Wars opens around the world on Friday, December the 18th. Well, and finally, Facebook is entering the $6 billion a year online career market with Facebook at Work. This service will allow users to create work accounts separate from their personal accounts and use Facebook tools to interact with co-workers. Facebook representatives say it's nearly identical to its current social network with a scrolling news feed, likes, and a chat service, but you can't play Candy Crush on it. Facebook has been beta testing the news service since January with more than 300 companies. It will open Facebook at Work to all companies when it launches. It will charge a few dollars per month for premium services such as analytics and customer support. The new service will pit Facebook against the likes of LinkedIn and Monster. And that is what is trending today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When an apple falls to the ground, it does not fall far from a tree. But what does it mean if you say that about a person? Let's listen.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Did you get a chance to meet Shelley's mom while she was in town? The two look like they could be sisters.
Yes, I did. She was so nice, and she talks the same way as Shelley. Clearly, the apple didn't fall far from the tree there.
If the apple does not fall far from the tree, it means two people are very similar. It means a son or daughter seems very similar to a parent. If a friend has many of the same qualities as one of his or her parents, you can say, wow, the apple sure didn't fall far from the tree. And that's English in a Minute.